Valley girl, she's a valley girl. Okay, fine, for sure, for sure, for sure. Valley girl in a moving star. Okay, fine, for sure, for sure, for sure.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rad Podcast from whatever rad place you're listening, whatever rad time, all you rad people. This is the Rad Podcast.
Thanks for joining us. Get rad with us because we got a special guest with us today. And may I welcome you to Sophia. Hey,
Hi.
welcome to the
Hi,
show. So
everybody.
good to have you on board.
Welcome,
Thank
Sophia,
you.
to the Rad Podcast. You're our first very rad student guest. So you should feel very privileged for that.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. And today, Sophia's here to talk about her dietary lifestyle, which is veganism. She is developing her senior project at school about veganism, and she wants to spread the message about veganism to other people in the school and worldwide because it's such an important issue. So I guess we'll start off, Sophia, for those people who don't know, because not everybody does, what is veganism?
Veganism is a lifestyle more than anything. A lifestyle that excludes all types of animal cruelty, including the food, the products you use, the clothes, the places you go. For example, you're not going to zoos or aquariums or things like that.
Okay, so we've got a little image here of the definition of veganism,
Yes.
excluding all animal cruelty.
And if you don't mind me saying, Sophia, there's a vegan society. Is this a worldwide society or is it national?
I think it's worldwide.
Worldwide. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Okay.
So Sophia, I think one of the big questions that comes to people's mind when they first hear about veganism is why? I mean, why would you do that? Because most of our normal upbringing teaches us that we should eat meat and other animal products as part of a healthy diet. So why have you chosen veganism, and why do you think other people should also?
I have chosen to go vegan because of the animals. Because I started watching like videos of what really happens in the slaughterhouses and things like that, and I just didn't want to be part of it anymore. So that's why I went vegan. And first of all, I went vegan because of the animals and of the cruelty that goes behind eating them. Second, the environment, because the animal exploitation involves water contamination, um, deforestation, because for the slaughterhouses, the building of them, they need to cut many rainforests, which also affects the wildlife, also for our health, because we have always been told to us that we need to eat vegetables, that they are very important, but many times when we go vegan, that is not beneficial anymore for the people who always told us that. And the vegetables have many benefits, and they don't have, for example, meat protein. It has protein, but it also has like chemicals and bad things introduced to the animal so that the meat could grow faster. And do you understand me? Like, eating meat
Hormones and
involves
things like
many
that.
things behind the protein, and the vegetables don't have that. They're just vegetables with all their vitamins.
Mhm. And so in your investigation into veganism, have you found that it is possible to have a healthy and complete diet without consuming animal products? I mean,
Of
for instance,
course.
you mentioned protein. Protein is one of the nutrients that obviously we need, um,
Hmm.
and usually one of our most reliant sources of protein usually comes from meat or other animal products like eggs, milk,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So how do you find that you can replace these things in your diet?
First of all, if you want to have a healthy and balanced vegan diet, you should either like really research well or go to a vegan nutritionist or someone who knows about the topic, because typically normal nutritionists are not gonna know about veganism and they're going to advise you against it. So and also you have to get a blood test done before you do it, so you can know where are you deficient on and what do you need to work in. And so first of all, vegan protein comes from three major sources. First of all, from like nuts, like peanut butter, pecans, cashews, things like that. Also from lentils, beans, chickpeas, and all that sources, and also from the plants. This image that David is showing on the screen shows the things, the land that veganism that the animals use. For example, just from one standard American diet, they use 2 football fields to feed one person per year. And for the plant-based diet, for 14 people, they use 2 football fields a year. And then down there, they show the what would be if the world ate on a plant-based diet.
I love one thing I love about gringo culture is how we measure everything in football fields. But I guess it gives us a way to understand. So in other words, veganism is a much more efficient way of producing the food for human beings, right?
Yes, and also not wasting like land and rainforest on many animals that could be used, like it is just wasting land.
Now, I think that maybe some people might understand the idea of veganism and say, okay, yeah, maybe it makes more sense, maybe economically, maybe nutritionally, even it might be great. But I love my hamburger. I want to eat my hamburger, and so what would you say to those people who resist, not so much from a rational standpoint, but maybe from a more emotional, or just in terms of taste? I mean, I like the things that I like, and
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like veganism has to be about sacrificing, or can you still get the things that you like and maintain a sort of an ethical treatment of animals?
No, you don't have to sacrifice your burger or the cheese or even eggs, because the vegan food industry has created many alternatives for that. For example, the Impossible Burger, the Beyond Meat Burger. Also, there are like many types of cheeses, and one company named the egg something, they created an egg replacement. It's just like a container of liquid yellow thing, and if you displayed it onto your pan, you can make like scrambled eggs.
Wow.
There
And
is
how
also
can you crack
fish
those?
made out from tomatoes, many things. I even eat vegan cheese on my house, because there is a Colombian brand named Badem that makes cheese, cream cheese, yogurt, ice creams, vegan arequipe, and condensed milk. So you don't have to give up those kind of things for going vegan. There are vegan alternatives for that.
Cool. Well, Sophia, David, I don't know if you've had a similar experience, but these last couple of weeks being in the house, I know that I've found myself spending a lot of time in the kitchen. I've been cooking. I cook usually for my wife every day. I cook lunch and usually breakfast as well. And of course, I'm not vegan or really vegetarian. I do though have a couple of tricks where a couple of dishes that I don't use meat or any other animal products in. But maybe Sophia, do you have any practical advice for people who are in their homes cooking right now? And maybe that's where we can get a little bit into your project, right? Because you had a project planned for the school to do some certain things. Why don't you talk about that, and then maybe we can continue to talk about recipes and things that people can do at home.
Okay, so for my project, the main objective was to change people's perspective on veganism, and also that would lead to another objective, which was to have a vegan day at school. But for the situations that we are in for the coronavirus, that is not going to be possible. So I redirected my objectives into new ways to achieve them. So for example, gonna do a type of cooking show where I'm gonna give out recipes and how to do them, and I will send that to all the LTSM community who wants to know about that. Also, I'm going to make an Instagram page where I'm gonna also post recipes and what nutrients or foods you would eat for a vegan balanced diet. So that's what I'm gonna do for the project.
And Sophia, if you don't mind me asking, one thing that I tend to try and do in my own exercise of cooking is trying to have a balanced diet. And one of the things that when I think of veganism is I think of potentially, in my opinion, even though I know it's not true, but sometimes the lack of protein. What recommendations would you give to people? Because for me, I remember doing research on this a long time ago, and chickpeas, right, which is what you make hummus out of.
Yes.
It's the second food after meat that comes highest in protein, hummus. So,
Yes.
I mean, trust me, when I get a tub of hummus, there's no way that hummus is going back to the fridge. No, it stays
Hummus
out and
is
it gets done,
delicious.
boom, just like that. But that for me is like, when I think of veganism, it's like, ooh, protein. Oh, hummus. There we go. I love me some hummus on crackers. I love me some hummus on bread. I mean, hell, I'll get a spoon and just hummus. Welcome.
I often put hummus on hummus because
Yeah. Stack hummus. Exactly. I love hummus. It's but what recommendations would you give for people to supplement that protein element that goes with veganism?
Like I mentioned there earlier, like you could include protein in many of your meals. For example, on breakfast, if you're eating cereal, you can just add some almonds to it, and there you have your protein. Also, chia seeds have protein, and if you don't like them, they are tasteless. Also, oatmeal has like a really big quantity of protein, and you can prepare it with fruits and also more almond butter or peanut butter or beans. There are many type of beans, and there are many ways you can use them in your meals. For example, out of beans or lentils or chickpeas, you can make like some patties, and you can use them in a hamburger, in a sandwich, in a salad, or you could just use the beans there by themselves in a salad or eat them in a soup. There are many ways to use them in a burrito.
So beans would be a good source of protein, is your argument, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
So Sophia, what would be maybe your advice to those students who are at home this week? You've been able to sort of generate a little bit of interest in the school. Many students have responded that they would also be interested in participating in your vegan day,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say these students are at home and maybe they would want to make a meal with their parents. Maybe they want to convince their parents that at least, if not eliminating, reducing the consumption of animal products might be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
What's maybe some of the most simple recipes that you would recommend to people to cook?
I can give you, like, for example, a normal lunch recipe. You can make the rice that everybody does. Maybe you could use, I don't know the word for it, like plátano maduro.
Plantains, ripe plantains.
Yes. Also, like some salad, like tomatoes and lettuce, and the type of bean you like normal beans, chickpeas, lentils, anything like that.
Okay.
Or you can
In fact,
also do the,
Or what was
or,
that, Sophia? Sorry.
sorry, I
What
was
was the
going to
other
share.
option?
or you can also do the patties that I mentioned earlier, and you can just use them as the whole patty and eat them in a meal, or you could just like make it into pieces and have it in a burrito of or a sandwich, many things.
Mm, nice, very cool. Yeah, so I can have a burrito that's a vegan burrito. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
You have opened up my mind into areas of unknown and unspoken of. So I'm going to be experimenting this week. I'll tell you that. A vegan burrito. Oh my goodness, that sounds fantastic, I say. Oh, lovely. Thank you for the recommendations. I do plan on trying some of these myself this week. Oh my goodness, the adventures I'll have in the kitchen. Oh, David and the kitchen. Instead of David against the kitchen, it's me and the kitchen working together. Jolly good. I'm looking forward to this.
So in the next couple of days, you're going to make some of these recipes available to the community so that we can
Yes.
start to follow them and start to look at them. Where can we look for those?
I think on YouTube. I will be posting them on YouTube, and maybe for you as my mentor on my senior project, I would share the link with you and you can share it with all the LTSM community.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can put the links down below
In
the
the
video.
description, just below, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And Sophia, there's some interesting things going on in the world today with food, right?
Yes.
I mean, partially even you could say that we're in the situation that we're in because of food. I mean, food in one way or another has
Yes.
gotten us into this situation. And every day it seems like it's a little bit more complex. In fact, I believe David was telling us a little bit earlier about some interesting new products that are coming out. Maybe you wanted to mention those because I'm not 100% sure. I don't do the same research as you.
No problem. Actually, Sophia, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to be playing devil's advocate a little bit, okay? So originally your arguments for going vegan were, and I state from what you said, were because of the environment, because
Yes.
of the slaughter of animals, and because
Yes.
of health. Now,
Yes.
what if I were to tell you those consequences of not going vegan could be eliminated because of the future of where food is going to be? Would you consider, even if those were the three consequences of eating meat, would you consider eating meat even if those three consequences disappeared?
For me, I wouldn't eat meat because on watching all those videos about how it's made and all the things behind that, I have developed like I don't like it anymore. I am disgusted by meat, but many vegans are just in it because of the animal abuse or or the health, and they would maybe consider eating meat if it doesn't involve like animal cruelty. But I wouldn't do it because I don't like meat anymore.
Okay.
But many vegans would do it.
Yeah, True, true. So in many ways for you, because of, you know, having the history of being vegan for a long time, you would not go back to eating meat as a result, correct?
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't.
Well, to those of you that are vegan out there and sometimes get a whiff of that sirloin steak in the air and you're thinking, oof, today may be the day that I relapse. Today may be the day that I go for the meat. I've got news for you. This is where the future of the meat is going to go. Now, in the US, two of the largest meat processing companies in the last year and a half, they've made huge investments into what's known as biotechnology. So it's essentially using animal tissues and the cells of animals to construct meat in the laboratory. These two companies are Tyson and Cargill Incorporated. They are the two largest in the US and the world for that matter, actually. Well, there's one in the world that's bigger than them, but still in the top three. And this is something that scares me because listen to these statistics. They're one of the biotech companies, Memphis Meats, okay, and this has been invested in by Richard Branson. Bill Gates has invested in this, as well as Draper Fisher. He's like a leading venture capitalist, always looks for money markets. But these three individuals are seeing that they know as a fact that between now and 2050, meat demand is supposed to double. Now, I'm going to show that image that you showed me just earlier, sorry, 1 second. Give me a second. Not that one, this one. Okay. Sorry, 1 second, and let me just share an image. All right. Okay, so right here, this that you mentioned about
Yes.
animal-based diet versus plant-based diet, the land use. What if I were to tell you if everyone in the world were to start eating manufactured meat? This is what we would have, right?
Yes.
And people know that, you know, between now and 2050, for meat demand to double, there needs to be something to happen because we're going to be not looking at 2 football fields. It very well could be 4 football fields in the future, right? It could be something astronomical with the number of, you know, they also predict, and this is an interesting fact, Oxford University did some studies, that 96% we would have of less greenhouse gases. 96% of what animals give off. I mean, in New Zealand, you're taxed if you have too many cows because of the amount of methane that they let off. But that's something that has always interested me. So right here, even if land use were to, for example, increase, I mean, we would have, even if we were to start eating this biotechnology food, we would all of a sudden start finding football fields and they would start to grow. So in many ways, it would be better for the environment, but it's just something that scares me. I don't want to eat something that comes from a laboratory. It's like, wait a second, have you not read the comic books? Anything that comes from a laboratory is going to be dangerous for you, you know? So I'm kind of like, do I really want to be eating meat in the future if it's going to be coming from a laboratory? I mean, maybe you have friends, Sophia, who, you know, like to have a burger or like to have a steak every now and then. Would you think that they would go after or they would eat laboratory meat per se?
I don't have any vegan friends yet because everybody I know are just not willing to go vegan. But for example, my parents and my brother, for the influence that I got on them, they went vegetarian, and I think they would, and they miss meat because they went on this journey for their health because they found out that it would be beneficial for them because of my blood results and many research that we have done, and also for a documentary. But I think they would eat this type of meat because they miss meat, and if that is healthy, that meat is healthy for them, and if it doesn't involve like cruelty, I think they would eat the meat.
No, definitely, definitely. And once again, I don't mean to play devil's advocate here, Sophia, but for example, did you find that, were you the first member in your family to go vegan?
Yes.
And as a result, did your family members have to follow suit and maybe try and have vegetarian meals together sometimes, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
when they asked me to cook, I was not going to cook animal products, so I made them vegan food, and there I was introducing them to this lifestyle and diet. So they started like liking it.
Very nice, very nice. I think, I don't know, if you don't mind me saying, I think sometimes that's the trouble people find is, naturally eating on our own isn't, a regular thing. We always eat with someone or with people around us. And I think
Yes,
sometimes people are fearful of going vegan because of that aspect of, ooh, if people are going to eat at my house, then they need to eat vegan. Otherwise, they don't eat. So, I feel like there's also a social component, if you will, of,
yes.
family. I know if my mother were to go vegan, the whole family would have to go vegan naturally and be like, no, 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 no meat for you. So, do you feel like there's a social component or a family component, if you will, in terms of having to go vegan in order to making other people go vegan as well if you live in the same household?
Yes, of course, because also by me going vegan, we started like buying more products of that would nutritionally be beneficial for me on my vegan diet, so that introduce them to that products. And also on the social component, many people have this bad thought about veganism and it being unhealthy, and many members of my outside, like my main family is my mother, my father and my brother, but outside that nucleus, my other part of the family, they many took my veganism as something dangerous for my health, and I showed them that it could be healthy, and many of them have also got vegetarian, or they maybe reduce their meat consumption and started doing like vegan or vegetarian recipes because of I opened their minds.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Nice, nice. Ryan, have you ever tried the vegan diet? I'm curious.
You know, I am I started getting interested in veganism a long time ago because of punk rock music. Although you might not think it, a lot of punk rock bands also are big into defending animals and animal rights and things like that. So it's definitely always been something that I have flirted with, but never made like a full commitment to. And sometimes when I think about it, I feel, I don't know, I feel guilty, or I feel bad about it, because I know the truth, and in one way or another I'm sort of contributing to that. What I would say is that my diet does not revolve around meat for sure, and my meat consumption is pretty low, and most of my cooking is vegetarian for sure. And well, vegan that's a tough one. That's a tough jump. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Losing out on cheese and other things
Yeah.
like that is difficult. But
But you can find vegan cheese on Pereira.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah. Well, I will have to do a little bit more research into that and start trying those things, because yeah, there's certain things that I know, like it would be
yeah.
sad to miss that. I totally sympathize with what David says, is that oftentimes another thing that I feel is difficult is the social aspect, because I feel, and especially in Colombia, because if you go to a social gathering here, I mean, what's more common than the asado, right?
Yes.
And um, and so on one hand, it hurt. It would be risky, or I would hate to think about sort of losing that social connection with other people. But at the same time, the ethical side of it just seems to be that much more convincing. So yeah, that's why I try and cook vegetarian and or vegan most of the time, with some exceptions. And I think this little event that we're all living right now. Well, also I think vegetarian cooking is oftentimes easier. For instance, beans. I'm a bean master. In fact, I pride myself on my beans.
Or bean maestro, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I might say that, and so I've been cooking a lot of beans and lentils, especially. In fact, today I had lentils for lunch. Today my lunch was 100% vegan.
Oh,
Lentils, rice,
congratulations.
yeah, and a really good salad. So it was good. And I was thinking about this podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be in line with the philosophy at least. So
Nice, very nice.
So yeah, I definitely sympathize. I definitely see all the reasons. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's my own weakness that has not allowed me to like actually go for it all the way. But I definitely respect people who have that conviction, and I do question myself a lot. I question myself as to whether or not what I'm doing is correct or not. And I really appreciate these conversations. I think these conversations are really important to have with everybody, with friends, with your family, because it's so easy just to grab something and eat it. But when you really think about where it comes from, and when you think about the whole chain, everybody's involved, and what it's doing to the world and things like that, I think it's pretty easy to see that someone like Sophia has a really good perspective for the future. Unless, of course, what you say, David, is true, and we'll be eating laboratory meat, but that
100%.
doesn't sound that attractive to me.
No, not at all. Actually, my brother, he didn't go vegan, but he went vegetarian. When was this? In February or January of last year, I think it was. And when I asked him, like, brother, I mean, at the time, he was living in a city and everything. I'm like, brother, why did you go vegetarian? And he's like, dude, one day I was like just walking down the streets and I felt the love of the animals. I'm like, Elliot, you lived in a city, the squirrels and the pigeons, or is that what you're saying? You felt the love of the squirrels and the pigeons? And he's like, yeah, man, like it just looked at me and I just realized I had to go vegetarian. I'm like, oh my goodness. So, there's that old phrase as well, which is you are what you eat. I don't know. I've heard something along those lines, And my brother and I, we had this discussion at one point, and the discussion was like, dude, I think all of a sudden I'm a lot more peaceful all of a sudden when I took meat out of me. It was like when I was eating meat, I was like in my predatory state, of like, like our, I don't know, DNA maybe, in fact, our genetic code from thousands of years ago was predispositioned to hunt and kill, right? So my brother said that he felt this transformation from just not eating meat. And, he's a year and 3 months in right now with no meat. So I applaud him, but I do question whether or not he's had a relapse in terms of eating meat or not. So as far as I've seen, not in front of me, but he does say that he feels a lot more tranquil and harmonious, if you will, because that whole phrase of you are what you eat, like you're eating maybe a scared cow. Yeah. I don't know.
If you eat plants, you're a little bit more plant-like.
Yeah, exactly. A lot more mellow, right?
And also many people.
I admire plants a lot, actually.
Yeah. Sophia?
I have heard that many people that go vegan, like also mainly it gives you like, it takes that conscience like about you eating and killing, being part of killing animals. That conscience is away from you, that like that weight. And also once my mother told me a story about a woman that could be that saw the dead people. I don't know if that's true or not, it depends on everybody like beliefs, but she told me that she wanted to go vegan, and when she went vegan, those people started like having more power over her because her vision was no longer clouded. Many things, I don't know, it is weird.
Yeah.
Veganism has many outcomes, I think.
Oh, definitely. I've even heard, well, anyway, ideas that people have had about how meat and the overuse of eating meat can actually like create cancerous cells in your body. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but it's something that I think about thinking, oh my goodness, in the future, they're going to have biotechnology meat. And I'm thinking about, you know, maybe these crazy friends of mine that talked about eating meat is, you know, like cancerous to the body. Maybe they were onto something. I don't know, but it's something that, you know, I think about, like eating meat, and if you will, there has to be some repercussions that go with that. Whatever we put in our body, there is always, you know, a positive and a negative that comes out, right? And I
Yes.
sometimes think, well, eating meat, where's their fine, positive protein, but on the negative, there has to be something that we just as a society haven't quite capitalized on or realized and opened our eyes. I do believe that there is something there. I just haven't quite, you know, finessed it, if you will, right?
Yes. Like eating meat has been linked to many major diseases. For example, cancer,
Yeah.
for the hormones,
Yeah.
diabetes, arthritis, and many other diseases. For example, the World Health Organization has said that the cigarettes and the meat had like a sort of link. They both had like a similar outcome of giving cancer to people. I researched that on the web, and it is true that they posted that. I saw that because of a documentary named "What the Health" that is on Netflix. I showed you the images of the documentaries that I sent you.
Okay. Oh, the video. You want me to play the video?
No, the image of the documentaries.
Yeah, there was a photo with some of the titles of the documentaries. Yeah, and maybe before we finish, we should show a couple of the videos that Sophia had recommended to us.
Yeah.
Some vegan videos tend to be they have some very strong images. These are a little bit more
violent.
general audience. So don't worry, we're not going to show anything difficult, but it's important to take into consideration.
Yes,
What the hell?
these documentaries are very many people after watching this go vegan because of all the arguments and the realities that they show there.
Cowspiracy. I've heard a lot of good things about this one right here, Cowspiracy. I haven't watched it, but I'm very intrigued. Well, you've given me something to watch tonight, so thank you, Sophia. Yeah, I've got myself some entertainment, it looks like. Thank you very much. Another thing that I wanted to mention is, you know, when it comes down to vegetables, as far as a country-to-country basis, there isn't, you know, so much regulation, right? But every country has different regulations in terms of meat. Vegetables are quite standardized in terms of the regulation, like, you know, farm to market. But meat is something that I always found interesting with the regulation. Now, myself, I lived in Texas for a little bit, and then I lived in the UK. Let me tell you, there is a significant difference, between the chicken in Texas, free range, and the chicken in the UK. Why? The chicken in the Texas that I remember trying was always dry. And I didn't realize it until they said FDA requirements in the US says that every chicken needs to go through a highly concentrated chlorine before it ever reaches the market. In the UK and the EU, food regulations were always very loose. It was, no, just, you know, keep it free range. Define it as free range. Don't put it through chlorine. And I always was able to taste a lot more of a moister kind of chicken. So in terms of legislation as well with governments, there's quite a bit of transparency from one country to another with vegetables. But meat, I don't know how they process meat here. I don't know how they process it in Brazil. I don't know I know a little bit of how they process it in the US, but it disgusts me what they do with it. You know, so there's this also important aspect of government regulations on distributing meat, you know, and that's something that doesn't really play around as much with vegetables. By goodness, I'll tell you one thing. This whole discussion has convinced me to go vegan. I'll say, Sophia, you're a standout salesman, I must say, or saleswoman. You've Oh my goodness, you're opening my eyes to new portals, honestly, in my life. Oh wow, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
That
you.
is great news for me.
All right.
And maybe we want to finish with a couple of those videos that Sophia had recommended to us.
Yes.
And then just remind our viewers that hopefully by next week, we should have some links to some recipes, some practical recipes that you can all prepare in your house. And think about maybe a way to share with your family this idea of a healthier, more environmentally friendly diet that that everybody really should be thinking about.
Can
Yes.
everybody see this right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh. Oh my goodness. Oh. Whoops, sorry. That was a video from another student. Sorry about that. Okay.
I think that video mainly like wanted to show how humans think that the whole planet and all the living things that it has on the planet are ours, and they can do whatever they want with that. So that is mainly for us to think about what we're doing and the impact that we have on the whole planet.
No, absolutely. I kind of got like my stomach started turning during a point of that where I was like, oh, wait, what? Really? No, please, no. But oh my goodness, yeah, no. Let me say, I've
I love
changed
the
my mind since
music
eating at
too.
home, but my goodness, you're planting seeds in my head, seeds that will grow into vegan food in my head. And I'll say, oh my goodness, yeah, no, thank you for that.
I love the music in the video too because it's so peaceful and it's funny because it also reflects things that we consider to be totally normal, right? I mean, we consider that killing and eating animals is completely normal. Why not? Why question that? But I mean, yeah, exactly. You really do have to question it at the very least, right? And say, is it correct what we're doing?
Yes.
And you had another video, correct?
Yes. The ones from, because many people think that there's not violence behind eating eggs, but there is also a violence and cruelty behind that. So, and that video shows what cruelty goes behind eating eggs.
So this is where we kind of make the jump from being vegetarian, which is that you're not going to eat, dead animals, basically, to vegan, which is where you're not going to eat or consume or use any products that come from animals, right? And the video showed some important things. I mean, that maybe some people don't think about either, but sometimes we also wear animals on our bodies. We use animals.
The animal testing for products.
Right.
All right, here, let me play the video.
It's amazing how sometimes we think of a living thing as like almost like a machine, right? A chicken isn't a living thing. It's just it's just an egg making machine.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's a pretty big mistake.
Here's an interesting fact though. And I've shared this idea with some people, but the real people I gotta share it with is the chickens and the roosters. And my idea is, at any point in time, there's 20 billion chickens. 20 billion. If they wanted to, and if they were, as organized as us humans were, they could stage a revolution and they could have the roosters as their generals. That's like, if they want to fight back against mankind for all this mistreatment, well, they got 20 billion. We got about what is it? 3.2 billion or 7?
No, we're at 7.7 now.
7.7. Thank you. Yes. 7.7 billion. So, it's, on that kind of level, just the number of chickens that exist in the world is nuts. But they play with the embryos and they do all this genetic modifications.
Mm-hmm.
Chickens, it's something. Oh, the more I talk about this, the more I'm convinced to go vegan. I'm telling you. Oh my goodness.
And then not only chickens, also pigs, cows, fish.
Yeah. No.
Many
In
animals.
fact, and so the U.S. banned it in 2005. But you know how DNA requires normally two people. Well, there's a type of genetic modification where you can put 3 together, 3 members of a DNA, and you can construct a new animal. And that's what they've actually been doing. It got banned in the US in 2006, but in other foreign countries, they're welcoming this aspect of, mixing DNAs of animals in order to be bigger and stronger. Yeah. My uncle, my ex-uncle, I don't know, something like that. He has like a embryo farm in Kansas. So he plays with the genes of cows. I think that's why my aunt didn't like him too much. He was a little bit like, oh, I'm going to play with the genes and the embryos of the cows and get the biggest ones possible. And that was his whole business was, manufacturing the genes of cows and selling, essentially the embryos to other farms in order to get the bigger and the stronger cow, which is absurd.
Well, Sophia, you've given us a lot to think about today, and I hope that the other people who are watching are also, just open to thinking about it, because that's the first step.
One can say it's food for thought.
Yeah. And thank you so much for being our first student guest. You were brave.
Thank you.
Brave to go into uncharted territories, but we really appreciate it. And I don't know, is there anything else you wanted to say to conclude?
No, I am thankful for you two on having me on this show, because you helped me share my perspective about veganism with the school and maybe other people that watch your podcast. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being on.
No, thank you, Sophia. It's been a pleasure. And honestly, it's too much food for thought. Like, I've already had dinner. You've given me so much food for thought, in all honesty. So, no, thank you for that. I've really enjoyed this discussion today, actually. Thank you.
Well,
You're
I guess
welcome.
that wraps up the RAD podcast for today. So remember, I'm Ryan.
And I'm David.
And that together makes us RAD.
On that note, everyone, we bid you a very farewell, a happy Monday, and a very good evening on Monday to you too. So take care, stay safe, and we will see you on Wednesday.
Bye.